Welcome to Tell Me More Stories Told As podcast.
Great to be here.
Today, we're stepping inside, well, maybe not literally, but definitely delving into a place with a history just packed with stories. HM Prison Wormwood Scrubs.
The Scrubs.
Exactly, the Scrubs.
Yeah.
We're going beyond just dates and facts today. We want to explore the surprising tales, the really unique moments hidden within those walls. It's a real London landmark.
It absolutely is. And it's not just a building, is it? It's like a living record of British history over, 150 years now?
150 years this year, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's in White City, West London, part of Hammersmith and Fulham.
Right. And the name itself, Wormwood Scrubs, it sort of tells a story, doesn't it?
It does sound evocative. Go on.
Well, Scrubs is pretty straightforward. It refers to the scrubland, the sort of wild, overgrown park it was built on.
Okay, that makes sense.
And wormwood, that's actually a plant, a subshrub, traditionally used, interestingly enough, to treat parasitic worms.
Worms. Okay, that's unexpected. Adds a certain flavor to the name.
Doesn't it just... But the way the prison itself started, that's really quite something. It wasn't your typical construction project.
Oh. How so?
Well, think about this. Winter 1874. The very first building wasn't put up by contractors. It was built by 9 prisoners.
Prisoners built the first bit.
Yes. 9 guys nearly finished their sentences, their job. Build a small, temporary prison out of corrugated iron.
Wow. So their last job before freedom was literally building part of the prison complex.
Exactly. Talk about irony. Then they brought in 50 more prisoners to build another temporary wing. And get this, the actual bricks for the permanent prison.
Let me guess, prisoners again.
You got it. Manufactured right there on site. By the inmates. It was a very hands-on approach to building your own prison.
That is genuinely astonishing. You sort of wonder if they left any secret escape routes in the plans.
Ha, maybe. But it seems to have held up. Construction finished properly in 1891.
And the design was by Sir Edmund Frederick Duquesne.
That's the one. Big name in prison design back then. The road leading up to the prison, Duquesne Road, is named after him. Still is.
So from this slightly strange inmate-built beginning, it becomes this major London institution. But its history gets even more interesting, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. Fast forward to World War I. It took on a very different role.
How do you mean?
It ended up housing a lot of conscientious objectors, people who refused to fight for moral or religious reasons.
Right. During wartime, that must have been incredibly controversial.
Hugely. And we actually have accounts from inside. There was a Quaker journalist, Hubert W. Peet. He was held there and wrote a book called 112 Days Hard Labor.
Wow, a first-hand account from that time. That gives you a real glimpse into what it was like for them.
It really does. Imagine a place designed for punishment, holding people standing up for their principles during a massive conflict.
That contrast is stark. And then, after the war, things didn't exactly quieten down, did they? I remember reading about a hunger strike in the 1920s.
Yes, 1920. Irish Republican prisoners demanding political status. When they didn't get it, they went on hunger strike.
That must have created huge tension.
Absolutely. It actually led to their release eventually, but it caused quite a stir outside, too. Large crowds gathered, supporters, And apparently there were clashes with locals, quite a few injuries reported.
So events inside the walls were spilling out onto the streets.
Precisely. It shows how prisons aren't isolated. They really impact the community around them.
And then World War II rolls around, and the Scrubs changes identity again, completely unexpectedly.
It really does. The War Department took it over temporarily.
Took it over? What happened to the prisoners?
They were evacuated, moved elsewhere, and for about a year, from 1939 to 1940, guess who moved in?
Go on.
MI5, the security service.
MI5, based in Wormwood Scrubs. That's incredible. From prison to spy HQ.
You couldn't make it up, could you? Just for a short, critical time, but still, a complete transformation.
Mind-boggling. And after the war, it went back to being a prison, but then came some of its most, shall we say, infamous moments.
You could say that. The Cold War era brought probably its most famous escape, George Blake, 1966.
Yes, the KGB double agent. That's pure spy thriller stuff, isn't it? Escaping from a major London prison and getting away to the Soviet Union.
Exactly. It caused a massive sensation. Put the Scrubs on the international map, though maybe not in the way the authorities wanted.
I can imagine. But the troubles didn't end there, did they? The later decades seemed pretty turbulent, too.
They were. There was the rooftop protest in 1979, IRA prisoners again, this time about visiting rights. That ended quite badly with injuries.
Right.
Then in the early 80s, there was an inquiry after that protest. It highlighted some serious management failures. The governor at the time actually called the prison a penal dustbin.
A penal dustbin. Wow, that's blunt and damning.
Very. And the 90s weren't much better. A big police investigation into staff brutality led to suspensions, convictions, quite significant payouts for mistreatment.
So real systemic problems were coming to light.
Yeah, and a very critical report basically said it needed major improvements or it should be shut down.
That's serious.
That's serious. Things did seem to improve a bit in the early 2000s. Reports mentioned inmates being treated more respectfully, but there were still concerns, like prisoners spending too much time locked in cells, not enough work or education.
So a mixed picture.
Very mixed.
Oh.
And then later in the 2000s, things seemed to deteriorate again. Reports of increased gang activity, more drug use.
It sounds like a constant cycle of problems and attempted fixes.
It often seems that way with older prisons. The 2010s brought more criticism, headlines about filthy conditions, issues with suicide prevention, overcrowding, violence. It got really bad.
Wasn't there a very serious incident a few years back?
Tragically, yes. In 2018, a prisoner was stabbed to death, and another died, reportedly after being deprived of food and medication. Just awful events.
Truly shocking. It highlights the immense challenges.
Absolutely. Inspections in 2019 and 2021 did show some safety improvements, but like before, it was often linked to prisoners being locked up for, 22 or 23 hours a day.
Which raises questions about rehabilitation, doesn't it?
Big questions. And even this year, 2024, a prisoner managed to abscond during a hospital visit. So the challenges, they definitely persist.
Such a complex place, layer upon layer of history, controversy, human stories. So what's it like today? Still a working prison, obviously.
Oh, yes. It's a Category B prison. That means it holds adult male prisoners, both those already sentenced, and guys on remand waiting for trial, often from local courts.
And inside, how's it structured?
There are 5 main wings, plus some smaller, more specialized units, like an induction wing for new arrivals, a unit to help stabilize guys with substance misuse issues, and a first night center.
So trying to manage different needs within the population and the cells themselves.
Well, the accommodation is basic, as you'd expect, but functional. They all have electricity, sanitation, a toilet, and sink of TV, basic furniture.
And practical things, like the prison shop.
Interestingly, that's changed hands recently. It used to be run by Aramark, now it's DHL Supply Chain handling it.
Even the logistics change over time. And you mentioned its history. Does the building itself have any special status?
It does, actually. The main gatehouse, that iconic entrance you often see in films, that's grade 2 listed. Very significant architecturally.
Grade 2-star.
And the main cell blocks are grade 2 listed too. And a nice little detail at the entrance, there are these 2 oval plaster reliefs.
Oh, yeah. Of what?
Prison reformers, Elizabeth Fry and John Howard, kind of a nod to the ideals of reform right there at the front door.
A reminder, perhaps, amidst the tougher realities. Now, something that always fascinates people about Wormwood Scrubs is the list of people who have been incarcerated there. It's quite the rogues gallery, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, the list of notable inmates is long and incredibly varied. You've got the obvious ones like George Blake, the spy we mentioned, Ian Brady, the Moors murderer, spent time there, Charles Bronson, probably Britain's most notorious prisoner.
Of course.
But it's not just them. You've got musicians like Pete Doherty from the Libertines.
Pete Doherty, really?
Yep. And Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones, though apparently only very briefly.
Keith Richards. Wow. Okay, who else?
Actors like Leslie Grantham, Dirty Den from EastEnders, controversial businessmen like Nicholas Van Hoogstraten, Bruce Reynolds, the leader of the Great Train Robbery Gang.
The Great Train Robber. It's like a who's who of, well, crime and notoriety.
And politics, too. John Stonehouse, the disgraced MP who faked his own death.
I remember that story.
Dennis Nilsen, the serial killer, was there briefly. Even writers and poets like Basil Bunting. And way back, even a lord, William Beauchamp Neville, back in the late 1800s.
It's an incredible cross-section of society, all passing through those same gates. Just imagine the stories those walls could tell.
Exactly. The sheer range of people is astonishing.
Now, before we dive into how the Scrubs has sort of seeped into our popular culture, just a quick reminder. If you're finding these stories as fascinating as we do, and you're enjoying this deep dive, please do hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, definitely. You won't want to miss where we explore next on Tell Me More.
Absolutely. So popular culture, Wormwood Scrubs seems to pop up everywhere, doesn't it? Especially in films and TV.
Oh, constantly. It's become the go-to location shot for prison exteriors, particularly release scenes, that iconic gatehouse.
You see it and you instantly know what's happening. Someone's getting out. I'm thinking of films like Billy Liar, The Italian Job.
Minder used it a lot too, didn't it?
Yes, it's cinematic shorthand for just released from prison.
Totally. It's got that immediate visual recognition, but it's not just a backdrop. It features in stories too, in literature.
Like novels and things.
Yeah. Authors like Sarah Waters and John Boyne have set scenes there. W. Somerset Maugham used it in short stories. Even the old A.J. Raffles stories, The Gentleman Thief. His sidekick, Bunny Manders, does time in the Scrubs.
No way. So it's a literary location too, a place writers use to explore themes of confinement, maybe redemption.
Exactly that. The name itself carries weight. And then there's music.
Ah, yes. Any examples spring to mind?
Loads. The Jam mentioned it Down in the Tube Station at Midnight. Billy Bragg has that song Rotting on Remand, which is pretty direct.
Right.
Pete Doherty wrote about his time there in Broken Love Song. Spike Milligan even wrote a funny song, The Wormwood Scrubs Tango.
Spike Milligan. Okay, that I need to hear.
It's about an elderly car thief, apparently. And even fictional bands. Gorillaz Lore has their bassist, Murdoch Nichols, serving time in the Scrubs.
That's brilliant. So it crosses genres completely.
It really does. Oh, and Gary Moore's album cover for Back on the Streets, it famously shows him being escorted out of the Scrubs gates.
It's just woven into the cultural fabric, hasn't it? From gritty realism to comedy to rock album covers.
It really has. It just shows its enduring place in the kind of public consciousness.
So when you pull it all together, the Victorian beginnings, the prisoners building it, the wartime secrets, the spies, the escapes, the famous inmates, the cultural references, it's more than just a prison.
It really is. It's a snapshot of British social history, warts and all. And the fact that it's still operating, still facing challenges, still trying to adapt, it tells us that the story of Wormwood Scrubs is definitely not over yet.
It's a story that continues to unfold. So wrapping up our deep dive into the Scrubs, it really leaves you thinking, doesn't it?
It does. Maybe about the personal stories, the ones we don't hear, of the thousands who've lived and worked there over 150 years.
Or perhaps to the bigger picture. What is the role of a place like this in society today? That whole tension between punishment and rehabilitation.
Huge questions. Definitely worth pondering.
Well, we hope we've given you plenty to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into Tell Me More Stories Told As podcast.
Thanks for listening.